Apa, the business prospects don't look too promising for 2026.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we've had the corruption scandal, but one of the learnings from this thing is that corruption does not affect the macroeconomic measures of our economy, right? And what happened was we had a slowdown in GDP growth in the third quarter, but it was because precisely government restricted spending on these infrastructure projects. It was not a direct result of the corruption itself, right? It was a result of the no. So the indicators for next year, macroeconomic indicators at least, are all still pretty good. We've had a year of low inflation. Uh, well, before the corruption scandal, the highest GDP growth in the region, no? And business is doing okay. The thing about macroeconomic figures is they don't tell the whole story, right? Um, when you have GDP growth like this in our scenario, it's really mostly rich people getting richer. It's not the poor getting less poor or joining the middle class. Unfortunately, you know, GDP growth can't measure that. And that remains the objective of development, no? That should be the government's objective. It certainly is the Makati Business Clubs. We are trying to for growth to affect the poorest of the poor. We're trying to help them grow and get out of poverty, and that should be our focus.
Well, Apa, it's always good to start the year with optimism. But heading into 2026, would you say businesses are more conservative, more cautious, and which sectors look promising?
Well, no, I would not say businesses are going to be more conservative or cautious. They're going to be, it's business as usual for these people. The stock exchange did not really do very well. We had a lot more losers in the blue chips than gainers, no? And that's because people held back on investment and on growth and so on. I think they've learned their lesson, and they're going to be a little more aggressive in 26.
Where do you see the growth, or where will people put in their money?
Well, that's hard to say. I'm not an economist, but there are certain areas where there's good growth. The energy sector is one. We really need better, cheaper, and more sustainable energy, and there are people who are willing to invest in that. No?
Well, Apa, you actually said this pretty candidly before, that it's not like there was this big wave of foreign interests when it comes to investments here in the Philippines, even before the flood control corruption scandal erupted. So aside from corruption, I mean, what else is holding back investors from being interested in the Philippine market?
I would say that we're losing out in terms of manufacturing, particularly to our ASEAN neighbors, especially Vietnam, because they have cheaper labor, they have cheaper power, and they're more stable politically. And corruption. They all have some measure of corruption, but in those particular areas, they're better than us. So people are bringing their factories to Vietnam, not to the Philippines.
Well, I hate to bring the corruption issue back, but what is the demand of the Makati Business Club with respect to how the government is tackling this issue? The ICI has but one member left. uh, and we have not heard from the ombudsman, who promised that cases will be filed at least by Christmas. So any demands from the Makati Business Club?
Well, well, we support the government's drive against corruption. Obviously, there have been a lot of obstacles, like the resignation of these very, um, these appointees that we felt were excellent. No, but what we've decided to focus on in the last quarter of the year is the budget, because that's where corruption is really embedded. No, so we've uh, had our teams in from the Philippine Budget Coalition, um, and a lot of them are academics and political scientists and data scientists, look over that budget with a fine-tooth comb and recommend, for instance, to the president himself, as well as to the congressmen and senators, that certain line items in that budget need to be taken out. These risky insertions and stuff like that, because they can easily become, well, they can easily be plundered, is what we're saying. There's not a lot of audit trail for these things. So we've focused our efforts for this period on the budget, because that's where it all takes place. That's where the magic happens, ika nga.
Yeah, well, speaking of the budget, APA, it was actually the Makati Business Club who was one of the first to sort of blow the whistle on the 2025 budget. You called it hijacked. You said it still contained pork. But looking at the 2026 budget now, did we see improvements, especially when it comes to transparency?
Yeah, definitely there are a lot of improvements with transparency. Um, I mean, huge improvements, no? Uh, Still not as much as we wanted, but and because of these improvements of transparency, we were able to see the efforts of particular sectors to try to insert, you know, the so now flood control is a bad word, infrastructure is bad. So what they're trying to do is worm their way into um, discretionary social welfare, which is pork barrels, basically handouts, right? And they want lump sums, and we're saying, hey, the Supreme Court has declared this illegal. You can't have lump sum discretionary funds.
All right, we'll have to end it there. Thank you for being with us. That was Makati Business Club Executive Director Apa Ongpin.